Thanks, Diane and Sandrine and Jack's note taker, and anybody else in the future that joins here in the live presentation. And thank you to everybody that's clicked in to watch the recording of this third of 6 community of practice sessions. Just as a reminder, and anybody that's new, these are bi-monthly. Every 2 months I do as part of my role in NHCPE, and our aim to support research literacy out there to the community. And when I say the community, I mean the counselling, the professional community, to counsellors, practitioners, academics, students, PhD students, anybody who has interest in counselling research. I run these community of practice sessions every 2 months. Last year, the agenda, or it was very organic, and the main questions and the main emphasis was all about PhDs. What are the options for PhDs in counselling in Australia? How do you apply? What are the pathways, etc.? They're all recorded, and last year's sessions are all on the NHCPE YouTube channel, which is publicly available inside YouTube. Just search inside YouTube for NHCPE, and the channel should come up, and they're all there. This year, the emphasis has changed rather to more focus on practitioners, and in particular, my emphasis was not teaching you these foreign skills that might scare you off. I don't want to do that, but rather recognize the skills you already use in your practice and just fine-tune them a bit so that the skills are undertaken or at a level of competency such that they're suitable for preparing a manuscript for publication. Does that all make sense so far, what we're doing? Yeah. We certainly always, the caveat here is if you do publish, if you're doing research, that's for your quality improvement initiatives inside your practice. That is not for publication. You can do this and write it up and publish it on your website. Publish it on your, when I say publish, so upload it on your website for potential clients to see, to demonstrate your efficacy and evidence base and what you're doing in practice. But if you actually want to publish it in a journal or present it at a conference, you do need ethics approval. So and I've talked about how you do that, and I think the easiest way to do that is just partner up with an academic friend who works at a university or an organisation that has an ethics board. Does that make sense so far? And they can help you with the other aspects. But the whole point of these presentations is very much fine-tuning your existing skills. That's, I think, an important learning outcome, that you as practitioners already have skills that are part of research. It's just fine-tuning them and fine-tuning them so they're suitable and robust and credible for publication. And that's what we're doing today. Session 1, which was, I think, February this year, we very much talked about your skills in case note writing and how you can fine-tune those case note writing so that the case notes themselves are robust and credible data ready for analysis for a paper. That might be exploring questions such as practitioner transference or counter-transference, your case notes in there that might be about something that you noticed shifted inside you that you've observed and written about. Your paper, your type of case note writing in regard to your own self-reflections can be used to answer questions about countertransference if there's research questions about that. Or if there's questions about, if you did this technique, you observed this in the client, and when you took the technique away, you observed this in the client with the observations, and these are all documented again in your case notes. Again, that's another beautiful data to answer questions about what's happening in the therapy room. So we talked about your case notes basically as a source of data, and we talked about how to fine-tune your case note writing so it's suitable for research. And in particular, we talked about that having case notes divided such that one side is all your objective observations, not interpretations or opinions, but the other side next to the objective data is your interpretations, is opinions based on your therapeutic experience and understanding, etc. So just separating those two out, because both of those types of data can answer different types of research questions. So if you haven't listened to that and you're interested in that, please just go to recording 1 of 2026. It's in the NHCPE website or YouTube channel. That led us to the second COP meeting that I recorded. Unfortunately, no one turned up to that, but I was a good girl and did it anyway and recorded it. And that was all about, besides case notes, other types of data you might be recording is just generally that feedback informed therapy. So occasionally us collecting data from your clients regarding their impression or their ideas about achieving their own defined goals. And I introduced 2 tools free to use in the public sphere that are tools that can collect progress in therapy, but you're not reduced, I suppose, to standardized scales that measure depression or anxiety or distress. Rather, the last week or 2 months ago, we introduced scales that the client themselves defined the end goal. So it's very much it's standardized measure of progress, but it's quantitative in that regards to it. It gives numbers to on a Likert scale from 1 to 5, based on the client's own impression of how they're progressing towards an owner-defined goal. I think the main one I talked about was the Goal Attainment Scale, or otherwise known as the GAS. So I talk all about that and how you can use that in your feedback-informed therapy in the therapy room as a way of collecting data for research. I think I've got another person. Yay. Hopefully it is a person and not a note taker. Let's see. Here we go, Dolores. Wonderful. Morning, afternoon or evening, Dolores. It's great to have you. We've just started, so and I'm just giving an overview of the last 2 recordings. Yeah, so last week was our last session was that GAS, otherwise known as a Goal Attainment Scale, which is a scale where the client defines the actual goal that you're striving towards. Okay, so that leads to this recording, which is again about feedback-informed treatment, but using more standardized scales and outcome and process measures. You're probably familiar with some of them, like the Scott Miller's SRS and MRS, SRS and ORS, but I will be talking about others that are in the public domain and are free, whereas Scott Miller's there is a charge to them. So let's go ahead and get involved with other types of scales that you can use to measure and record progress on goals, client goals. So before we go any further, Sandrine, Dolores, or Diane, or Jack's note taker, do you have any questions? All right, beautiful.
No, all good. Thank you.
Okay, pleasure. Yeah. All right. So so why are we going to measure? And the main reasons why we do routine outcome monitoring or feedback informed therapy is because of a thing called the therapist drift. Now, I don't know if you are aware of that. Otherwise, some people call it the clinician's blind spot. But generally, there is research out there that says that therapists actually consistently overestimate their effectiveness, and they actually do fail to spot either deterioration or that therapeutic plateau. You might find that the alliance you've built is absolutely beautiful, growing and maintaining, and that's great. But what's plateauing or possibly going down is actually the attainment of that goal. That's what we call the therapist drift or the clinician blind spot. Don't know if anybody's ever noticed that. Yeah. Hi, Dolores. Yeah. So, yeah, which is a bit, it's ineffective. And I hope Dolores is okay. She seems to have dropped out, but hopefully we'll see you back. Yeah. Yeah. So for that reason, there we are. Yeah. For that reason, to avoid the whole happy days, beautiful alliance, but absolutely no change happening, to avoid that, therapists tend to engage in routine outcome monitoring to ensure that what they're doing is actually helping the client achieve their goal. And indeed, what we talked about in the last session does the same thing. It helps you monitor whether the goals have been attained or not. So that's why we do routine outcome monitoring. The frequency in regards to when you do measuring of your goal at points is up to the therapist. Sometimes it's weekly. I think Scott Miller in his SRSs and MR and ORSs does encourage weekly. But if you're using other scales, such as the ones I'm introducing in this presentation, you might want to space it out a bit, maybe once a month, or maybe right at the beginning and then the middle at the end. But as you can imagine, if you do measure outcomes in a routine way, you've got a better chance of noticing if there a plateau occurs or if indeed a deterioration, so you can make an adjustment in what you're doing. Any questions on that, what I'm talking about? All right. So the first one, and this is one of the handouts I've got for you. It's called the Core 10. And I'm promoting this one over and above others because it is public. It's in the public domain. It is free for you to use, and it's short. It has 10 items only, and it can measure progress or not in presentations such as anxiety, depression, trauma, physical functioning, risk, etc. I'm gonna see if I can find the actual scale so I can talk a bit more about it. I'll just find it in my files here, and I will share it with you. Here it is. So the Core 10, as it says here, it's actually a nicely formatted, publicly available. I will. I'm just going to see if the next slide actually has an image of it. No, it doesn't. That's all right. Yeah, and it asks that the client answer 10 questions from 0, which is not at all, through to 4 most or all of the time on these 10 questions that they've experienced over the past week. So it's very much a here and now over the past week sort of cross-sectional sort of survey. An example question is, I have felt tense, anxious, or nervous. And the client scores between 0 and 4. Yeah, so and it gives you how to score it at the bottom and what the cutoff score is. It says here typically 11 or above 11 might make you look at this and go, okay, things aren't going so well, I need to adjust something. The one thing I would say that you need to stop everything is the suicidal ideation risk question. If a client in your routine outcome monitoring, a client indicates often or most or all of the time, that is score a 3, a 4, and 8, I would just stop everything and go launch right into risk assessment. Yeah. But other than that, the core 10 is a really good way to measure the progress on the general reasons why clients might see a counsellor. Any questions on the core 10? Easy to score, etc. Easy to administer. Yeah. And indeed, if you you could easily put it in a online survey and just send the link to the client to do it over the next week instead of doing it at pen and paper in the therapy room. So it's super easy like that, and helps you keep progress, keep an actual score on progress, and doing that regularly, you very much build up a nice data set there for your client. Yeah, which you could write a case study on, especially if you're using a new technique in therapy. You can definitely see if scores change with the introduction of a new technique or a new therapy model, or any changes that you're putting in the therapy room. All right, well, that's the core 10. That's one of them, and I will be sharing that with you with the handouts. And another one is a process measure, that is the WAISR, which is another way of measuring your alliance, essentially, and it's based on Borden's model of therapeutic alliance. So the working alliance inventory, I also have, that's your handout number 1. Yeah, I've actually got that also for you with how to score it, etc. It's got 12 items in it, and clients score it from 1, which means seldom, up to 5, always. And an example item might be, I believe my therapist likes me. All right, so it's definitely measuring those 3 factors of Borden's understanding of therapeutic alliance, which is bond, task, and goal. So that's a nice one just to keep an eye on your alliance as well. So if you're interested in both alliance and goal attainment, you might couple this one with the core 10, or if it's a client-defined goal, the GAS that we talked about in the last COP session. All right. Yeah, so that's the WAISR, and you've got the, if you want to read up on it, I've given you all the references for this one as well. According to the authors, they state that it's best administering the WAISR every 3 or 4 sessions, just so you're doing a check on how your process is going. Or if you notice that there's a plateau, or you're stuck, or clients just not seeming to be any improvements, handing over the WAISR to see what's going on. It might be an alliance issue, and then that would open up a discussion with you and your client. All right, discussing the task items. Again, tasks items, I believe, such as what am I doing in therapy gives me new ways of looking at my problem. So if there's in your WAISR, low scores on the items that measure a task might be another hint for you to open up a conversation with your client. So if you've got a low task score of about, I think, 4, I would be definitely having a conversation with your client. But if anything that's scored at 11 plus, you could confidently say that your therapeutic alliance is healthy. Yeah. All right. Again, you've got an example of that one, so I'm not too sure. Has anybody ever used the WAI or something similar in their their routine outcome scoring in therapy or anything like that? Or any examples that they'd like to share with me? No? Okay. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about why I'm talking about the core 10 and the WAISR as opposed to those better or those more good wording, Katrina, those more promoted scales of goal attainment, such as the ORS or SRS, as promoted by Scott Miller, is because essentially that the ones I'm promoting here are open access, they're free, they are validated, and they are publishable. In other words, it's perfectly okay to use these in a document that you want to publish. It's absolutely okay. But if using tools that are locked behind a paywall is appealing to you, feel free to go onto Scott Miller's site and download his versions, whether the child or the adult versions of the ORS or SRS. They're just as good. Yeah, they're just less accessible. But always, as I said, if you're doing research to publish, I'm just going to get rid of this something here. You always need HEX ethics boards, and the tools. Yes, it's good to be use sustainable and accessible tools. Sustainable, as in what I've said here. They're validated. They're well known. They're validated to measure the things they're stated to be measuring, and they're not just made up tools where someone just says, oh yeah, I've just put these 5 questions together, I reckon they measure. That's not validated. That's just someone's opinion. The ones I'm showing you here are actually been proven using psychometric statistics and psychometric methods. These have been demonstrated to measure what they're stated to measure. The core 10 measures distress, depression, anxiety, and the other things that it's stated it measures. And the WAISR has been known to reliably measure your therapeutic alliance in the therapy room. So they're 2 very accessible measures that are reputable and publishable. All right, so once we've collected this data, what do? I do recommend line graphs like this. Just say you've got, let's just look at these graphs. Your SAI is represented by the orange line, and maybe your core 10 is your blue line. You can certainly, and along the bottom axis here is time, and obviously the score on the scales are up on this y-axis. You can tell that this client had, maybe the score was, maybe with the core 10, a lower score meant, let's just say low levels of joy or low levels of, or high levels of depression. you can see that when they came at the first session, there was very much a low mood, for instance, but there was a good alliance between the client and the counsellor, and he scored the alliance really highly. Luckily, there was some improvement. The alliance stayed high. It actually never moved. He was just super happy with you every time he went in there. And that alliance certainly probably had something to do with the increase in mood, but then the mood plateaued. Okay, and no matter how many times you come in, the mood just plateaued at that low, that maybe a level of 1.5, between 1 and 2, but the alliance just stayed there. That's what we call the comfortable plateau. He's having a wow of a time. He's very much relying on you, but something's not happening. Symptoms aren't changing. Something needs to happen. Something needs to change. So maybe, and this is another example, alliance is low. So, you know, the client's just really miserable, doesn't like anybody, including you. However, whatever you're doing in therapy is having an amazing effect on whatever the complaint is. And you can see that there is an improvement quite rapidly. He still doesn't like you, but you're having an effect. So, yeah, so that's what we can see. That's what those two scales can show you. If we had a blue line that just plateaued down there and the orange line plateaued up there, yeah, certainly there's a relationship going on, but there needs something else. You have to put something else, and that's what this data is telling you. A conversation needs to be had, with the client, what I'm doing, or my process, or my framework of therapy here. Although you like me as a person, it appears my framework or the way I do therapy isn't having an effect on your mood. Do you think we need to use something different, or do you think you need a referral? Those sorts of conversations need to be had possibly around the session 3 mark here. I would have it. Otherwise, you're just you're wasting your time, and it's quite unethical to continue on when you know nothing's happening. Yeah. Any questions so far on what I'm presenting? Does it all make sense so far? Yeah. All right. Okay. So ethical, always, when we're collecting data for the purposes of research, there's always an ethical obligation to manage the data so that it doesn't fall in the wrong hands. So obviously, like I said, in the core 10, I don't know if it's item 6. I think it's actually item, yes, it is. It's item 6. A high score on item 6 is a red flag. Don't continue on the research. Don't continue on the therapy. You're going straight into risk assessment there and managing that client on risk assessment strategy. Yeah. In terms of filing the data, exactly. If in going on from the risk assessment, you just don't file that data. You keep meticulous notes. You act on it immediately. You keep your notes on what you actually did. And obviously keep the clients informed at all times about what's going on, respect their autonomy. But also in regards to, even if there is no risk item, they score low on 6, because you may be collecting data for research, all this data needs to be filed, if it's on a computer, in a password protected file. If it's pen and paper, obviously locked away in a lockable cabinet. If you're actually got an academic friend and you're doing research, ethically approved research, universities often have data repositories, and the university will take responsibility of the data So after you're finished with the client, you can then pass all that data over to the university, who can file it in their research data repository. And then you delete it, so that it, you know, just in case your laptop gets stolen, your client's data isn't suddenly available in the public sphere. So that's probably what will likely happen if you're doing ethic research alongside a university under the auspices of an HRE ethics board. Yeah, so, which is all very important. Now, this is all a little bit more about research design, what you can do with these numbers that have come out of your routine outcome measures. You might be interested in using a particular technique with a particular type of client. For example, you've got this special fandangled technique that you want to see is effective against anxiety. So every time you have an anxiety client and the clients are of a similar demographics, same age range, etc., you might routinely measure their anxiety using the core 10 at the exact same sessions in each client. So session pre-session, then maybe session 2, again at session 5, a session 8 or so. So you're starting to build up data across a number of clients and across time. So it's a good idea when you've got all that data and you want to see if generally the trend is going up across a number of clients, you aggregate the scores, and your academic friend can help you with this. There is statistical tools, SPSS, Excel, etc., that can average the scores across time as well as across clients. So you can compare maybe pre and post scores, or you can compare different populations with the same scores, etc. So that's what you can do with that data, and then apply statistical tests to those aggregates to see if the differences are indeed significant and has occurred outside of chance, which means significant. That is meaning that it's likely that the change that you've seen in those mean scores are because of that intervention that you've introduced into therapy. That's what a pre-post analysis would definitely answer. And indeed the slope of change too. So hopefully we want a slope going upwards and not downwards. So this data can also help you answer questions related to that. All right. Yes, correlational studies. So you might, especially with using a core 10 and the WAI SR scale, you could actually correlate the aggregates of those two scores and reliably say if that correlation is significant. You can't say it's causing, but you can reliably say there is a relationship between therapy outcomes and my therapeutic alliance. You can actually say there's a relationship, but correlations don't demonstrate causality. But definitely you can measure and talk about that. So this therapy model addressed anxiety, you know, as our alliance strengthened, so did the anxiety improve. There's a relationship there. Benchmarking. So there are statistics that can benchmark your client against national averages. That's another thing to see if what you're doing is equivalent to what we know in the community or against a clinical population. That's certainly something that you can do too. And reliable change index. That's what I'm talking about. That's statistics you can do to calculate if the change is statistically significant. I'm not going to teach that here. I'm talking more about your refining clinical skills. That might be something I talk about down the track, but indeed anybody at a university that has a PhD will be able to help you with all that. Absolutely. Any questions? Am I still got you, or am I confusing you? All good. Yeah. All right. This is how, if you do adopt these routine outcome measures as a way of measuring progress in therapy, and you are doing it to write up a paper, this is the type of paragraph you'd likely write up in your method section after the introduction. You might say something like, routine outcome monitoring, otherwise known as ROM, was implemented using the Core 10, which is a 10-item pan-theoretical measure of psychological distress. The Therapeutic Alliance was monitored using the Working Alliance Inventory, short revised, and measures were administered at the start and at the end of every session. That's actually probably a little bit too much, but, you know, why not? Data was aggregated to calculate the reliable change index and to identify trajectories of change. And then after that, you would actually discuss your results, and then in the discussion, interpret those results that you got. Okay. If you found a positive correlation, you might interpret it as anxiety can be reliably relieved when the client has a healthy therapeutic alliance with the client. But indeed, we're using statistics to compare aggregates pre-post after doing an intervention, you can actually say something like, it is demonstrated that my technique has a significant positive effect on anxiety, yeah, as measured by the Core 10 or something like that. Yeah. So it's more than just eyeballing it and guessing. You're actually using statistics to demonstrate without any doubt that the benefits you're creating in the therapy room is not just by chance and even not due to your alliance. It's actually demonstrated the change is due to whatever you're doing in the therapy room. Yeah, you're actually demonstrating that. It's publishable. PACTUR or ACA's journal would love it. Yeah. And what it does is demonstrate that what you're doing in the therapy, and we know it, it's just that a lot of practitioners aren't writing up all the beautiful work that's happening in a therapy room. So we can't actually go to the government saying, look how effective we are. But if practitioners start doing this, they can actually say, look, my narrative therapy that I'm applying to teenagers that are experiencing climate anxiety, this narrative technique I'm using is actually having an effect in reducing that climate anxiety. Look at my results, you know. So yeah. So any questions on what I've just said? No. All right. So your action plan, I'm giving you some homework. I'm going to give you those templates that I've talked to you about. I do encourage you maybe to adopt using the Therapeutic Alliance Scale, otherwise known as that WAISR, with a client that's willing to do so. And maybe even the Core 10, and putting those dots on those graphs. And to notice if you're getting any plateaus or anything. And if you do get a plateau, have that discussion, make a change and see if that change makes a difference. That is beautiful data, especially that change. What was it that made that change? That's the thing we need to write up about, particularly if you did notice that plateau. That's your action plan. Yeah, so adopt that if you will. All right. I've used a lot of references to help me in the preparing of this. So these are the references in case you want to read up more on any of the information that I've shared with you today. So that's given us, I'm finishing at the 45-minute mark. So that's given us some beautiful time to ask any questions or ask me any clarifications, or even give me some examples that you can share with the recording of people watching this in this instance of your using any routine outcome measures, or if you know of any that I haven't talked about today that you'd like to share. Otherwise, we might call it a night. Yeah, so it's your space now. Yeah, I can stop sharing the slides if you'd like. Yeah. Not at all.
It's certainly interesting, very interesting, isn't it? And I think I worked for Relationships Australia for a while, and they did use the ORS. So,
Oh, good.
Yeah, and then it sort of fell out of favour a little, and sort of clinicians or practitioners stopped using it. But it was useful. I think it was effective to do to get some sort of feedback. It was a good talking point.
Oh, it certainly is. Absolutely. Because a client certainly, not going to be aware that this a steady plateau in alliance is actually the sign of, something's not working here. Actually a good relationship actually occurs when there's tear and repair. If you do a challenging question.
Yes.
If the alliance stays up there even after challenging that client, that's actually something to, that's actually data. Okay, what's happening here? Yeah. Are they people pleasers? Like they don't want to upset you at their own growth. Yeah, absolutely. These are all these sorts of things that these routine outcome measures do. So thanks for sharing that, Diane. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm all about accessibility, so yeah, these are free. They're free to download, and I've downloaded them and I'm going to share them with you because they are free in the public domain. Yeah, so I like the Core 10. I particularly like that Core 10. Yeah. It's actually, I'm going to share it with you. It's actually quite a neat looking scale. Just where's my share screen? Hopefully that's it. Yep. So that's what it looks like, the Core 10. It's like a very hospital document almost, but that's free to download. Yeah. So I managed to get it for you. Yeah. From coresystemtrust.org.uk, this one. Yeah. So quite a nice one.
Yeah, I haven't seen it before.
Yeah.
Sorry, do I have a lot of background noise coming through?
No, I can't hear a thing, honestly. Yeah.
Good. So if we were wanting to sort of like maybe think about doing research along this line, like maybe looking at the therapeutic alliance. So the first step is to approach your local university, and because if you're not a student going there, how do you sort of like make that connection?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm hoping, I'm speaking for me, I'm not speaking for other academics, but I'd like to think other counselling academics are very amenable to emails from local practitioners in the local area that want to do practice-based evidence and need an academic partner. So you can, with that academic partner, that academic can guide you in the piece of research, help you either do the writing for you, or if you're wanting to do the writing, they can at least be your editor in that writing, guide you in the research design. The academic will prepare the ethics application and make sure the ethic applications goes through, and then hopefully mentor you in at least the data collection, making sure the data collection, similar to what we're talking today, is done robustly, and we'll talk all about that, and then help you either the academic can do the data analysis, or at least help you to do the data analysis, and then guide you in the discussion part of it, help you with the preparing the manuscript, and then once that's done, help you with submitting it to a journal. And then I would like to think that you are the first author because it's your piece of research. You're the one that's gone to the academic. So you should be the first author and the academic is the second author. All right. So the academic acts as like a mentor for you. You don't have to be an enrolled student, but the academic can do that for you. Yeah.
And it goes to the ethic board at the local university.
Yeah.
Where the academic works.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
All universities, a university is called, well, has the status of university because it includes research as its service, and to have and to do research you have to have a government approved ethics board, and all universities have these ethics boards. There are other ethics boards. If you go onto the NHCPE website, we list another privately owned ethics board in there, the Christian Research Association. They obviously are promote theological sort of research, but there's a lot of crossover with counselling. So they do do a lot of counselling related research in there too, hence why they've agreed to look after anybody who approaches them via the NHCPE, learning about them from NHCPE website. They're more than happy to work with you. There are academics in there as well, so they can be your academic partners as well. Definitely. Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah. So colleges, private colleges, or institutes of higher education, for example, let's say the Australian Institute of Professional Counsellors, because it's not a university, they don't do research, so they don't have an ethics board. So yeah, to have an ethics board, you're either a university, or if you're a private association, that does research, like the CRA, they will mention on their website that they have an approved ethics board. Yeah. Yeah, you can't do research you can't publish your research outcomes without ethics approval. Yeah. Yeah, it's all really about protecting the public, as you can appreciate. Yeah, to try and stop what happened in basically Nuremberg. Yeah. Yeah, so we've got to protect the public, which is fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, research that psychologists used to do, like the little Albert experiment. Yeah, we can't do those things anymore. Thank goodness. Yeah. Yeah. So the more you do them, I've done many ethics applications. Yeah. So I can, they get through pretty much straight away. And that's why, and most academics at universities are pretty experienced at writing these ethics applications. So they are big documents, they really want to make sure that you're being careful with the public. Yeah. So, yeah. But as I said, if you're doing this with your clients, not for publication, but at least to have evidence that you might put on your website, such as 3 out of 4 clients or 9 out of 10 clients scored this on the core 10, that you don't need an ethics application for that one. That's just you putting on your website your actual outcomes that you've achieved as part of your routine outcome measurements. Yeah. Which all counsellors should be doing anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, actually, putting it up on the website. That's interesting. Yeah.
It's a good idea, right?
Yeah, it is actually, yeah.
I'd just let your clients know, if you're going to do it, tell your clients, remember when I saw you and I made you fill out those questionnaires if with permission from you, I want to put those numbers on my website to demonstrate how effective I am, but I will not be putting your name up on my website. That I'll only put the number. Anybody who reads my website will not know that that's associated with you. Okay, so just make sure, and even to be doubly sure, put it in writing and get the client to sign that so they understand that's like informed consent. Yeah,
it's a lot more ethical than getting a recommendation or whatever they on Google. Sometimes it's a much more ethical than that.
Yeah, gosh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And it promotes your website, promotes your practice. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, people do look at that people do look at those ratings, but I don't know. It's not. I don't really agree with them, but yeah, it's not such a good thing.
In the Google one, you mean?
Yeah. People do look at them.
100%. I see what you mean. Yeah, so you want to be able to put something up there that's a little bit more reliable than these Google ratings.
Yeah, and no names. Yeah,
and no names. Exactly. Yeah. Good points, Diane. Yeah. I'm just seeing if I can see what my last. I think that is my last slide. Just for your information, though. Next in number 4, community of practice number 4, we're extending on this by talking about making iterative refinements of your therapeutic techniques. So remember when I was talking about, okay, you're using your routine outcome measuring, and you've noticed a plateau, and you need to do some sort of refinement. Yeah, that's what the next session's all about. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And that's you being a scientist practitioner there and then, just there. So yeah, that's exactly feedback informed therapy. That's what practitioner-based evidence is all about, Yeah. So that's what the next one's all about. Yeah. Which will be that'll be August. Yeah, today's June. Tonight, this month's June. Yes, that'll be in August. Yeah.
Be here in no time.
I know. You're not wrong. All right then. Well, any other questions? We're right at the 7 o'clock mark now. Well, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. I'll certainly be putting this recording on the YouTube channel, and I'll also put the YouTube link in LinkedIn for everybody to see, and I'll make sure that these handouts are available to everybody as well. So have a great evening, everybody. I really appreciate your attention. And thank you so much for supporting this community of practice. I really appreciate it. All right.
Thanks for your time,
Thank
Katrina.
you.
It's
Good
great.
to know.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.